Welcome to Lighthouse on the week of spring break. We are so excited to be back here with you for a quick recap of our relationship series questions. So we ended the relationship series with a bunch of questions that were asked anonymously. People just wrote them down on cards and we went through and we got way more questions than we thought we were going to. So instead of coming back after spring break and finishing with more relationship talk, we're going to move into a series on holiness and the way that God has asked you to live separately from the world. It's called Not So With You. It's going to be fantastic. But for today, for spring break, if you have time, we wanted to spend some time running through a bunch of questions that we didn't get to answer previously. So in an effort to make this as easy as possible for you, we are hosting this video on YouTube because YouTube will let you do series descriptions. So below this video, if you will go look at the description, there's going to be a bunch of time codes. They start with 0 minutes and 0 seconds for introduction, which is this. And then I've listed out a summary of each question with a time code so that you can jump around and you can hit the questions and answers that you are most interested in. So without any further delay, let's get into some questions. Wednesday, we got so many good questions. And just as a very short recap, one that came up was, how do you handle arguments and disagreements without overreacting? We talked about making sure that the problem is never you. The problem that we're disagreeing about is a problem by itself, and it's the two of us figuring out how to tackle that problem together. Then I can't overreact because I'm not mad at her. I'm mad about the problem. And when we are together against the problem, it's a whole different world. So that is a very important question. Thank you so much for asking.
And the other recap is, have you ever done something wrong and had to hide it from your wife or husband, I guess? And, we talked about, that yes, that temptation is going to come. The more I thought about it after talking is I think the temptation arises more from hiding something that I did that was dumb. Like if I accidentally break something, I'm like, oh, do I really have to tell Joe this? Is he still going to be attracted to me after he finds out what I did? But ultimately it's always better to be honest. And you're more likely to have your spouse be angry at you for the hiding than for the actual event. Most of the time, most people know that everybody's human, everybody makes mistakes, and people can forgive mistakes, but forgiving lying is a lot harder to do. So,
absolutely. So without further delay, let's knock into a bunch of the questions that you guys asked. The first is, how is the relationship affecting your mental health? And I think this is a really good question to ask constantly as far as relationships go. This is something that plays into everything that we do. And I talk a lot about the 5 health theory, that your physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual health are all connected. When you're physically sick, you're not hanging out with your friends, your mind is in a fog, you're emotionally feeling blah all the time. So the relationship that you're in should be giving your mental health a boost. A lot of people use physical relationships as an excuse to get away from having to focus on school. Like it's a de-stressing mechanism for some people. And that's not a healthy way to have a relationship. So I know for me, there's a world of stuff that I don't have to worry about. I can literally just take it out of my mind and set it aside because I know she's on top of it. So every relationship, every good relationship, including friendships, should be having a positive effect on your mental health. If you find that your mental health is constantly being poisoned by the people around you, those are people that you should probably unapologetically cut out of your life.
Yeah, and I would say too that the majority of the time whenever I go through seasons where I realize that our relationship, how we're functioning in that time has not been positive on my mental health, usually it's my reactions to the events that are happening. Not necessarily, Joe's not bad for my mental health, but when I am over-analyzing one of his actions or thinking that his actions means more than it did, then I am causing poor outcomes on my mental health because I'm like, oh, he doesn't love me because he's doing this, or he's not attracting me because he's not doing that, or whatever it might be. So figuring out, how you balance with that person is like, this person has to be good for your mental health, obviously, but also the way you react to this person should be good for your mental health. And fortunately, that's a lot easier to fix than the previous one. So I've definitely learned a lot over the years to change the way I view things and process things to help with that.
Thank you so much. I just remembered we were going to ask each other these questions.
Okay.
I messed up completely. Okay. Just do whatever you want to do with it.
Okay. What shampoo do you use for your beard?
That's right. Oh, I forgot we were doing the the funny questions. So when it comes to beard health, for those of you who are involved in that in the near future, you pretty much never want to shampoo your beard. It will strip all of the oils that keep your beard healthy out of it, and you can actually get your beard infected by not leaving enough of the natural oils in there to protect it. So you can condition your beard. That is a healthy thing to do. They make a variety of beard oils and beard balms, kind of a waxy balm to help add to that healthy level of growth. And I have to say, ever since I started using a new beard balm from, I can't remember. When I edit this, I'm gonna find a picture of it and stick it in there. But the new beard balm smells amazing and feels amazing, and it's super easy to use. So I will update with that in post-production.
Well, I don't have a beard, but it is very likely that everybody is overusing shampoo. I actually haven't used shampoo in years because it strips all the hair oil out of my hair, and so I just don't use it, and my hair is healthy and smells amazing.
Mm-hmm. Is it hard to deal with being married young in today's world? I'll let the child answer this one.
I was married young in today's world 9 years ago. And it definitely, I got a lot of people saying, why would you get married so young? You still haven't lived so much of your life and all these different things. And I think that it's different for everybody, you know, but for me, all the things that I wanted to do in life was not hindered by a partner. It was amplified by a partner. And so all the things that we got to do together was more than I could have done with myself. I mean, we were living on our own, working as servers, and I couldn't have done that on a server's wage. I couldn't have lived on my own personally. Between going to school and ministry and all that stuff, it just wouldn't have worked for me. So there were a lot of things that I got to do, got to travel when he was in the band, and you know, things that were specific to him. I don't think that I would be working my dream job now if it wasn't for him, because he's the main breadwinner, and it was a lot of building up my career to be able to do that. So we had kids young, we had our careers young, and I think that was because we were together. And again, that's going to be different for other people. Some people, you know, there are things that you want to do with your life that are better for you to be alone. And I would say be patient and go through those processes, because you definitely don't want to be angry at the person you're with and resentful because, I didn't get to do all the things I wanted to do because I was married to him, you know, stuff like that. So really analyze what God's calling you to and what you want from your life, and see where relationships fit in with that. And if you find someone, then they're a good fit for you, then it's going to work out. It's going to be great.
Yeah. So. I don't have anything to add.
Because I'm awesome. How do you know if the person you're with is the right one, the one that God wants for you?
Ooh, the eternal question. How do we know if it's the right one? So here's the thing. I dated a girl. I thought she was awesome. I thought she was fantastic. She was everything I wanted. And she cheated on me and gave me back the ring. And it was a huge mess. And my life developed without her. And with who I became, looking back on it, by the time I met Abby, she was no longer perfect for me. That other girl no longer fit who I was as a person. And so the question really is, what is God calling you to do? Who does he want you to be? What is he wanting you to accomplish? And does this person really fit in that plan for you? Does this person really help you achieve that goal? And do you really help them achieve their goals and their purpose and their calling? If the two of you function far better together because of who you are right now, then I would say you have a very, very high chance of this being an amazing, awesome, wonderful relationship for you now. If you still have some growing to do, if you... this is hard for high schoolers to hear, and so please don't think that I'm pointing this at anyone, especially for some of our couples in the group. Pre-college, it is super hard to know who you are and what you're doing. You may learn something in college, and it could be one throwaway phrase that a professor uses that just completely changes your life and your outlook on things. And over the next 6 months, as you kind of ruminate on that thing, and it changes you and it tweaks you, and who you become in your thought life starts to change the way that you look at everything, and you become somebody different. And so chasing your degree or your trade certificate or whatever it is that you want to do with your life, becoming your own person first really matters so much. once the two of you are together, once you're committed, once you're married, you'll find that it's no longer about you changing. It's about you together changing. If I decided I'm done with ministry and I'm ready to just go hop in the oil field and make a bunch of money, and like, it would be a hard thing for her. And I get that, because that's not who we are. And that doesn't fit our goals for reaching the world the way that we want to. So it's not about me anymore. It's about us, constantly about us. So does you fit into the us of the two of you together perfectly?
Yeah. Well, and like, I remember when we were getting married, I thought to myself, everybody who gets married thinks this is the one, but some of those marriages fail. And I thought to myself, those people were so sure, I'm never going to leave this person, I'm going to make this promise. And then, that promise didn't come. So I thought to myself, okay, so if I wake up a few years from now and go like, oh, I made a mistake, or, we're not as happy as I thought we would be, or we're not in the places I thought we would be, I thought to myself, but if that happens, who is Joe? What is he like? What would he do in that circumstances? And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that he would work as hard as he could to fix it, that he would never leave me no matter what. And ultimately that became more important than how I was feeling in that moment. Even though how I was feeling in that moment was over the moon, I had to put that aside and really analyze, is this good for my future? And ultimately I decided it was. And being with a person who would be willing to fix anything and move on from anything was really important to me. And I think should be important to all of us when we're choosing that future spouse, because you can't look into the future and know what's going to happen, but you can know what that person would do in those situations, what kind of choices they would make generally.
Absolutely. Oh, that was a nice throw. You can show my birds.
Oh.
How do you deal with arguments in a relationship? How do you like my birds? And it's funny, one is birds and the other is burbs. I will say it, they're actually very...
They kind of remind me of Angry Birds.
Yeah, this one is a big angry bird. This one down here is duck, I guess. Okay, so cool. Anyway.
Ducks are birds. I kind of forget that sometimes.
How do you deal with arguments in a relationship? Very similar to the other one. Make sure that it's always the two of you against the problem. Also, I will say you need to know your triggers, and you need to know how you respond and how you feel about things. One piece of advice that I heard when I was growing up a lot from a ton of people everywhere, I heard this: never go to bed angry. And that's actually scriptural. Never let the sun set on your anger. I will say, I'm not saying scripture is wrong. I'm saying never let the sun set on your anger has some certain connotations and some situations that applies to. Most situations it applies to. Sometimes a situation is so frustrating that bringing it up over and over and over again as you're exhausted and as you're worn out is the worst thing you can do. And so sometimes you need to say, let's pause. Let's sleep on it. Let's talk about it tomorrow when we are, because this is not going to get solved tonight, and I don't want you to go to bed angrier than you are already. And so keeping the other person's mental and emotional state in mind, and knowing that your ultimate goal is to take care of this person and to help them chase Jesus. So if this argument is going to be a detriment to that, then you need to find a new way to have that argument and discuss this.
Yeah.
So.
And kind of like, just tagging on to that exact thing is that sometimes it doesn't just mean at the end of the day. Sometimes it means you can't leave this location. Sometimes this means you can't leave this situation. Like the sundown, I think, is like a flexible term. Like, we can't leave this house until we solve this, because we can't go out there like this, or whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah.
Or vice versa. I am so mad about this that I can't talk about this right now. I need 30 minutes to myself. I need to calm down before I do this. And I've done that before. I say, you know what, we just need to talk about this later. And I drive to work and I sit down in my office and I look at my Bibles and I'm like, how can I be this mad? Like, this is not who I am, and I need to change this. And then I look back at it and I was totally wrong in the first place. And taking time to cool down is important as well. Some people don't need to cool down. They need to solve it now. So you need to know who you are and how you best solve arguments so that you can do it the best way possible together.
I would say most of the time, whenever we've had one of those big arguments that wasn't just solved in just one conversation, the ones that like last longer than that, when we come back together, we both realize, okay, I did this wrong thing, and he'll say this, I did this wrong thing. So usually there's some wrong that both of you have done. I think very rarely is anybody else the perfect person and everybody else is just horrible. So how do you get over feelings for someone when they like someone else? Yeah. What, you want me to do this? Oh, it's my turn.
No, it's up to
my
you.
turn.
No,
I got this.
I mean, are we asking each other? No one knows what's going on.
Right. We're just winging it. I definitely would say that I have for sure been through this exact scenario. There was someone who I really thought that was the perfect person for me, and he was kind of going through a lot of darkness in his life. So a part of me wanted to save him, to be like that shining light that made him realize how wrong he was, and he would come back to Jesus, all that good jazz. And it, when it came to a point when I realized that, he's not the one, he's not in a good place for a relationship anyway, and all those things. And it was hard. I thought about him every single day. And I think that, we kind of make teenagers feel like that's stupid. It's like, why are you obsessing over this person who doesn't like you? It's not stupid. Your feelings are completely valid and they're real. And pretending like it's a silly thing kind of makes it hard to get over, because it just kind of sits there and is not validated for what it really is. And I would definitely say that being focused on your goals is a good plan when it comes to overcoming feelings for someone who's not a good fit for you. Reminding yourself, they're going this way, I'm going this way. We would be miserable together if we got together right now anyway. But also recognizing that, whoever you're meant to be with, that person is, going to be looked at by other people and interested in by other people, and recognizing that if they're not for you, they're for somebody else, and you don't want to be pining after somebody else's wife or somebody else's husband. They don't belong to you. And so remembering that too, and wanting the best for that other person and for them to be with someone who they truly are a good match with, and respecting yourself that, if this person is not a good match for me, I deserve someone who is a good match for me. And that good match, that number one thing makes a good match is that they like you and they want to be with you and all those things. But yeah, just like I would strongly encourage praying over it. Just like sometimes when I would think about that person, I'd be like, in Jesus' name, please help me to stop thinking about him. And it took a while, but it worked. Like I can honestly say that. And now when I look back, I'm like, when you're finally with that perfect person, you're going to look back at all those people and go like, oh my gosh, how did I think they would be a good fit for me?
Yeah. Very good. If you know in your heart that you will marry a person but are not married yet, is physical intimacy allowed, not intercourse?
Everything leading up to.
Yeah. So this is very reminiscent of the age-old question, where's the line? How much is enough? So to give it a 100% scriptural answer, Jesus said, if you look at a woman lustfully, you've already committed adultery with her in your heart. So a couple things play into it here. Is this driven by love or lust? And you're going to say love. And I'm not going to say that you're wrong, but I am going to say you're probably wrong. I'm not saying you're a lustful person. That's the only thing driving you. I'm saying you aren't old enough to really discern or know. Please hear me out. I'm not trying to knock on you. I'm saying you don't know how powerful lust really is. You don't know how much lust really plays into things. Lust is like butter in cooking. It is possible to do a lot of really awesome stuff without butter, but it is also possible to make an amazing dish without butter and then just a little bit of butter at the end. Or you use some other ingredient that you don't realize had butter in it. Butter is sneaky. Maybe I should have used garlic as the example, or so, it's this spice that makes everything better, but does it?
T-shirts to come soon. Lust is like garlic.
Lust is like garlic. It kills vampires. So, physical intimacy, really, it's dicey. I knew a guy in college. He and I had a lot of talks about this kind of stuff, and he said, I love this girl that I'm with. I'm spending time with her. I kiss her she's amazing. I'm showing her my affection. She's showing me her affection. But I get to this place where like I feel it in my spirit and I have to pull away and say, I need to stop. Mm-hmm. And that takes a level of maturity and a level of strength that most young people don't have. You're probably not there yet. And so my encouragement to you is it allowed? There's no scripture saying thou shalt not touch hair. Thou shalt not touch skin. Keep everything above neckline of current garment. Like there's nothing that says that specifically. Careful. Because it is something that tends to establish bars. And the longer you're with someone, holding hands used to give you a certain level of endorphins. And after a while, it doesn't anymore. And so you want to go just a little bit further. You want to, and without getting into specifics and without being gross and without taking 20 minutes to answer one question, once you set a level of what's acceptable in a relationship as far as physical touch goes, that level becomes normal. And for there to be a greater rush, you tend to want to push a little bit further. You want to have a little bit more. Be careful. Keep it as light as possible for as long as possible. Marriage is not everything that you think that it is. It's wonderful. It's amazing. I'm not saying it's bad at all. And I'm not just saying that because she's here. It's not... I get my license to do whatever I want. Marriage is this amazing new realm of living together and knowing one another. And there's a lot that you're going to uncover that you just never saw coming. And so the further you go beforehand, the less there is to explore, the less there is to know, the less there is to develop together afterwards. And you really want your marriage to be amazing and full of first times and, oh, this is cool. So save and be careful now.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit on, not much, but I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about how sex is not taught very well in Christian settings, and it's something that we both want to see change because of different things that we didn't know going into marriage, and just things that we would have liked to understand more fully, was just kind of glossed over. And one of those things I would definitely say is that when you build up too much the anticipation and the sneaking around and like how exciting it is to be physically intimate when your parents aren't watching or, when you're alone in those few moments, that excitement is really hard to top in marriage because like we can do whatever we want, whenever we want, aside from like kids being around and stuff like that. And so when you kind of make those pre-sexual experiences too much for a marriage to top, that can be kind of damaging to your sexual life with your spouse in the future. And usually not within the first year, but eventually, things will, get a little more regular, and then you'd be like, oh, this is different. And so you're always going to be wishing that you could go back to that. And so don't do something that you wish that you would go back to, save the best for, those perfect times with your spouse. And I'm saying that because the one of the notes on there was that, I know I'm going to marry this person. So, maybe it doesn't really make that big of a difference, how physical we get. And so I know that's not exactly what you said, but there's a lot of people who feel that way. I know that I was tempted to feel that way. Like days before our wedding, I'm like, listen, we're almost here. Like maybe, no, we'll be good. It's all good. But anyway. And then I was also going to say, look to your future too. If you are doing something with a current relationship right now that you would dread telling a future spouse about later, that keep that in mind. Whatever you do with someone right now before you're married, make sure that it's something that you'd feel comfortable being like, yeah, it's no big deal. We just held hands. That was it. Make sure it's a level that you'd feel comfortable with. And more likely than not, if you've come close to the line or even crossed over the line, when it happened. It's like, oh, that was a little bit further than I probably should have gone. And so, God's not going to be like, well, you're not a virgin anymore. You went over that line, whatever it was. But you can say, okay, so now I know where it is. And now I can pull back. And now I can have a communication with this person I'm with and say, hey, I'm really not comfortable with how far we went. And I really want to scale it back and be a little bit more careful. Being open in communication and communicating in the beginning when you start a relationship. especially when it's like, I understand not first date topic, but after you decided that this is something that we're going to be pursuing together for a while, be very clear and upfront with where your line is and be willing for that line to move back. Never move it forward, willing to move it back and be like, I thought that was the line, but now I realize I really want it to be more back here. So yes, I think that's it.
All right.
Was it my turn?
I think so, yeah.
Once I am in a relationship, how should I go about keeping the relationship fun and God-fearing, even once I've hit the edge of my boundary? How do I stay in it without ruining and keeping it interesting? Still keeping it interesting. I get it now. So it's...
Okay. Let me just read through it again.
I answer that one.
All right. We're just gonna...
I would say the God-fearing, I think, is easy. Go to church together, go to do ministry events together, stuff like that. Like find ways to serve God together. And sometimes that's going to be like through your church. And if you're watching this and you don't go to our church, maybe your church doesn't have ways to plug in, and I totally get that. Like if you go to a small church, then I would find ways to serve God together, volunteer at a soup kitchen together, volunteer at a nursing home together, whatever it takes, like find a way to serve God together or be in the word of God together. And I would say that I think that I don't know what the dating climate is now. I dated 9 years ago or more closer to 10 years ago, actually. But I would say that, find ways to encourage your person that you're dating with scripture. Send them a Bible verse, send them worship songs to listen to worship songs when you're in the car. Like I think that keeping it God-fearing is really easy, especially if you get over we're just gonna do some weird Jesus stuff together. Like, just get over that emotion and just realize that, you want to be doing this when you're married anyway. And this is all a preparation for hopefully marrying someone. So let's do that.
Yeah. Outside of the spiritual realm, because again, remember, physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual are all connected. So find hobbies together. Like if you want to keep your relationship interesting, rule number 1 is be interesting. Mm-hmm. So 100% of the time, do something that's awesome. The example that always seems to come up is rock climbing for whatever reason. So go bouldering, develop your physical sense, like work out. And find ways to work out together. So rock climbing is a cool, fun thing to do. Go rock climbing together. Give it a shot. Get out there and do cool, fun, interesting stuff together that develops your physical health. Do stuff that develops your intellectual, your mental health together. Go watch a seminar. Go watch a documentary. Like do something that you find fascinating or cool or interesting to help better yourself so that you are a better, more well-rounded person to bring into the relationship already. You want to be interesting. You want to have an awesome, interesting relationship centered around God. Be the best tool you can be in God's hands in your physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual self, and be interesting together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
And even if you don't have stuff that you like, let's say that your hobbies and interests are completely different. I think that some people think that that's a sign that the relationship is doomed or something. But Joe and I we have some overlapping interests, but like as far as like what we like to do with our hands, it's like very different. But we found that we can do those things in the same room. It's like, maybe I'm crocheting, maybe he's doing something else, but like we're still talking to each other, still hanging out. Like we don't have to be doing exactly the same thing, but as long as we're just not being stagnant and, like you said, being boring.
Yeah. Why can't people be honest when they're not interested? People can't take the truth at 16 to 18 years old.
Or 25 and 30 and 40.
Yeah. Some people don't grow up in this aspect. And the older you get, the more you start to realize that some people are very mature in some areas and very immature in other areas. And this is kind of a stigma because when you're a kid, friends will tell you, oh, you're so mature for your age. And so you get this kind of praise and you think, oh, I'm a mature person. And then you get old enough to realize like, wow, I'm an absolute child with this one area. Like no, absolutely not. I'm not this. And you can start to get down on yourself for that. And so some people are really bad about handling the truth. Some people they're terrified of confrontation in any way, shape, or form. I'll say I'm not a big fan of confrontation. I know a few people who are just all about confrontation.
Those are fun.
Yeah, Zaf back home, actually, he in a meeting one time, he's like, I love confrontation. Confrontation gets stuff done. Why do I want to have 5 meetings around a topic when I can be like, why do you not want to do this? And then you can tell me, and then we can figure it out together. Like, fix it. So Why can't people be honest when they're not interested? Usually this stems from someone was very honest with them in a way that they did not like when they were younger, and it left a kind of emotional scar. And so they will do anything to not be like that person. So they don't want to hurt your feelings the same way that their feelings got hurt. They don't want to do that to someone else. So it's actually a form of kindness and good for them, but also terrible for them because you're not getting the clear answer that you want. And so why can't people be honest when they're not interested? Let me flip it around. Why can't you be direct about being interested? Why don't you turn around and say, I'm interested in knowing you better. I think you're really cool. I would like to hang out sometime. Would you be interested in going on one date with me?
Yeah, well, and I would say that I don't have much dating experience, but I remember in a time of my life when I was just so desperate to find, that future spouse, and so just desperate, it's the best word for it. And there was this guy who I could tell had a crush on me, but I had no feelings for him whatsoever. And I was like, of course, the guy finally has a crush on me and I don't have any feelings for him. And I remember when he communicated that to me, saying no was one of the hardest things. And it was somewhat easy too, because I really had no feelings for him whatsoever. But I was really grateful that it finally came out, because there was this whole buildup of just like, any day now, he could ask me out any day. And finally, when he did, it was so releasing, because like I was able to communicate to him that I had no feelings for him, and he was able to communicate to me. And then we still were friends and we still hung out and everything. But it was just like finally like, it was a huge relief when it was over. Not during, it was rough during, and I'm not going to lie to you about that part. But afterwards, no matter what the answer is, everybody's going to feel better, especially this person who's like, I can tell there's something going on, but I don't know what it is.
Yep. So there we go.
Okay, we already talked about that. Would you say people can change for someone?
Can people change for someone?
I would argue the word for. I think that people can change. I've seen amazing changes in people over the years, and I've read about even more dramatic changes in people over the years. But I will say that I don't think much good has come from people changing for someone that's not God or themselves.
Yeah.
Because it's a weak motivation. Like, if I change for Joe, then okay, when I'm around Joe, I'm doing good with this thing. But it might also develop to this, like, well, I only changed this for Joe. Like, if it weren't for Joe, I could keep doing this thing that I enjoy doing, or being this way that I enjoy being, or whatever it was. And so I just think it's really risky to expect that and ask that and do that. So if you're like, no matter which side you are on of that, like, I really think that you should look inward and be like, who does God want me to be? What does he want from my life? What do I want from my life? And does this change help that or harm that? And I know that there are things, because obviously there are going to be things in a relationship that you butt heads because, like, this person needs to fix this and that person needs to fix this. And so I think that really whenever one of us has decided change is made, it's not for Joe, it's for us. It's like this isn't moving us forward, and in fact it might be even moving us backwards. So one of us needs to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was trying to get to. Like, I mean, I'm 34 years old and I'm changing stuff about me now, 9 years into marriage, because it's what best suits us. And, I can't be this person that I want to be anymore if we are going to get further down the road. Mm-hmm. It's time for me to grow up and start doing more dishes. It's time for me to grow up and do more. I don't need to get in all the details. I'm telling myself too much.
Keep talking.
But shut up. No. So can you change for someone? Yes, you can. Should you? No. Now, on the flip side, should someone give up on someone because they're not entirely what they want? I really like this person, but she listens to country music all the time, and I'm just not gonna deal with that. Quit being so picky. Get over it. 99 out of 100 is okay. Like, don't get so hung up on the one thing that they don't want to change about themselves that you are willing to cast someone aside who is amazing for you. Yeah. You're just too prideful and stuck up to admit it. So Get over it.
And that goes back to what you were talking about the other night about the list. You make your list of things that you won't budge on, like Christian and stuff like that. But then your list of things that's like, it would be really nice if they like the same kind of music as me or whatever. That's like your flexible area.
Yeah. So I chucked a bunch of cards earlier. I'm down to one goofy card at the end of my list.
Do you want a serious one?
Okay, sure. If I'm in a relationship and I feel like I'm not getting enough attention or I just want a little bit more, am I selfish or is this reasonable? Am I selfish if the other person is not naturally affectionate or even if they are? Woo! If I feel like I'm not getting enough attention or want just a little bit more.
I think probably we should divide this into two kinds of attention. Like attention like time and stuff like that, or are they talking about physical attention?
Yeah.
So we probably should cover both just to be safe.
Yeah, although I also want to keep this fairly quick. We've been...
Yeah, this is a long one.
Yeah. So physical attention, setting everything aside and just, I'm going to spend time with you, baby. That kind of attention, so this is a conversation that needs to happen. Because there's a level that you're comfortable with, you find acceptable, and there's a level that you want. Mm-hmm. And there's a level that they're comfortable with and acceptable, and they're at it. And there's a level that they want, and they're at it. Mm-hmm. So there's a conversation that you need to have as far as that, like direct one-on-one time. This is something that we've struggled with even, because I work late. I come home and I'm exhausted. I've been talking with people. I've been dealing with people all day. And she's been dealing with children all day. And she's ready to have an adult conversation. And
this is the dark period of the Barnowski marriage.
Being able to push everything aside and say, no, how are you? Like, just spend time together is difficult. We've had to, and especially since kids, we've had to really make time in the day and intentionally set time aside to make that happen. Mm-hmm. But that was only after we had a conversation of, hey, we're missing this. You know what? We're right. We are missing this, and that's something that needs to happen.
And I wish that we'd had that conversation earlier, because I think I could look at it easily a full year of us just like me wanting more, him wanting, a break, and then vice versa, and just kind of bouncing back and forth for like a year until we finally sat down and we're just like, hey, this is like not working. And then it got so much better. Like even if things didn't change instantly, just the fact that he understood that where I was at and I understood where he was at really made it a lot easier moving forward, because like what demands I place on him will be different based on understanding what he is able to give.
Mm-hmm. There is a really interesting psychological principle called emotional bids, and you should Google it. You should look into it. There was a study done where this scientist ran this like bed and breakfast type thing and had a different married couple come in overnight, and they knew, everything was agreed to. It was a newlywed couple within their honeymoon period. They come in, they would stay one night at this bed and breakfast that was set up, and there were cameras and microphones everywhere, and they just observed this couple and how the two of them interacted together. And they're specifically looking at emotional bids. When someone says, oh wow, I saw this really funny thing online, how does the other person respond? When someone says, hey, I'm kind of cold, do you want me to turn up the heat? How does the other person respond? When someone is feeling a certain emotion and they're letting that emotion be known, how does the other person respond? Mm-hmm. For couples that responded less than 40% of the time to an emotional bid, within 5 years, 90% of those couples were divorced. And so I'm looking at this question, if I feel like I'm not getting enough attention, and I'm thinking that you're putting emotional bids out there and saying, hey, I'm invested in this thing, I'm interested in this thing, what do you think? And you're not getting responses back. And I'm not saying it's unhealthy or that it's evil or malicious, it's probably not intentional. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, are they not responding to your emotional bids? Are they not giving you the time and the attention that you want because they don't recognize how much you're putting out there? Like, are they completely unaware of it? Mm-hmm. Or are you putting things out there and they don't care enough to respond? And that's the answer that you need to find. Are they really invested in you? Or is this something that's really not healthy? Or can a simple conversation, hey, I really want to start talking about this more, I really want to be more involved together, can that change everything in your relationship dynamic? Getting into emotional bids has saved marriages. So pay attention.
And I think as teenagers, it's easy to tolerate a lot because you're so happy to be with someone, and that's normal. I understand that. That's a good feeling. But also recognize that if this person is completely unable to meet any of your needs when you're in high school and, you've got, plenty of free time, you have the whole summers and you have all this time to work on each other and they can't meet your needs at all, are they going to be able to meet your needs when you have jobs and ministry stuff and kids? Just keep that in mind too. It's like, you don't have to tolerate stuff. Like, I would much rather see you alone and growing in God and all those kinds of things and waiting for that person who will meet those needs than just tolerating years and years of just methness, which kind of like is a good, I tossed it on the floor because I thought we'd answered it, but it asked, how do you know you're with the one that you're going to marry? And we covered that mostly, but I just wanted to add a little piece that you're gonna know way sooner than you think. With the modern society and non-Christian society has created this idea that you have to practice being married for years to be sure that it will work. But truthfully, you knew within those first few months that this was a good fit for you. And really just the time after that is just making sure. And please, parents, don't come angry at me if your kid's engaged for 6 months or something like that. But I see people engaged for 5-6 years and then finally breaking up. And it's just like, they knew that something was wrong and they ignored the signs. So like, honestly, if someone put a gun to my head and said, decide either you marry Joe now or, you move on after our first date, I'd be like, I know there's just this deep seated feeling that I know that he is a good person, so I probably would have chosen that. Thank goodness that didn't happen. And please don't get married after one day. But, it's like, you're going to know. It's don't waste time with the, is it thing. If you know, and if you don't know, it probably isn't.
It was a really good first date.
It was a great date. We did talk for 2 weeks before our first date, so I did know him a little bit more before. Is it weird to be friends with your ex? That's a super easy, quick one. I would say that a lot depends on that ex. Like, why did you break up? How close were you intimacy-wise? And does your current people, the current relationship, spouse, dating partner, whatever it is, do they feel comfortable with that? Because if Joe told me, hey, I'm gonna be friends with so-and-so, we used to date, then I get to be a part of that decision. It's not something he gets to make by himself. And also, if he had been friends with this person for 5 years and then I come into the picture, again, I also get to have that conversation with him and be like, is this something we feel comfortable with? And ultimately, you choose your partner over your ex. Definitely don't risk everything for that friendship with that ex. There are lots of friends in the world and they will find other friends and you will find other friends. But yeah, what do you think?
Just got to throw that in there, don't you? No, it's okay. You were in Africa for a while. So is it weird to be friends with your ex? It depends on the level of friendship. Not just on the ex itself. Yeah. And it depends on the activity. Like, we used to play games together and Jim is having a game night. Okay, that's not weird.
Yeah.
We used to sneak off and make out in movie theaters a lot. Hey, I got nothing to do and Susie wants to know if I want to go see a movie. Different story. Get out of the theater.
Yeah.
So yeah, it totally depends on the ex. This is one of those depends situations. If you two were super close, probably weird. Mm-hmm. If it was we tried dating and nothing really happened and there was no chemistry, totally different story. So
yeah, a case by case basis.
Absolutely. And so we wanted to end on a light note, and the last question is, how many Muppet voices can you do?
Ooh.
And I'm going to be disappointing on this one because I don't even know how many Muppets there are. There's Kermit the Frog, and I can do Kermit. I remember my cousin Matt, when we were growing up, he was like, hey, what's your favorite Muppet? And I was like, oh, Kermit. He was like, oh man, Kermit's lame. Grover's awesome. And I can't even tell you what Grover's voice, I cannot think of what Grover's voice sounds like in my head. There's Oscar the Grouch. No, that's Sesame Street.
Sesame Street.
Yeah, see, I don't know who's who.
You know nothing.
I know nothing.
If anybody, like, why would you choose Grover, though? He's like I don't even...
That's what I thought.
He's the dog, right?
No, Grover's the blue.
No, that's Gonzo. The guy with the nose? Gonzo!
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I don't even know who Grover is. Maybe Gonzo is Matt's favorite, and I've just been saying the wrong word for
Grover's from
years.
Sesame Street, too. He's the one that looks like Cookie Monster, but he's thin. He's like a superhero. He's got a very similar voice to Gonzo, which is kind of funny.
So now I have them all mixed up. So I can do Kermit the Frog, and we're going to leave it at that. So that's that.
Are you not going to do Kermit the Frog?
I've done Kermit the Frog at youth so much, though.
But, like, maybe people outside of Lighthouse are going to watch this.
Kermit the Frog here. So I tell the youth group, if you're not part of our regular youth, why are you still watching? This has been such a long video. I tell kids, like when I get bored, I'm around the church, I'm working, I'm doing stuff. I will get songs stuck in my head. And because I hear them all the time with Christian radio that plays around the church, I'll throw fun voices on them. And more often than not, I will end up doing Kermit the Frog. And so I'm literally just like walking around the church. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And yeah, that's my hobby. If you just come down to the church on a random day, that's what you're going to find me doing. So there's that. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you for sticking around and digging into more relationship questions for us. If you have any other questions, please feel free to shoot me a text or an email, joe@lotwchurch.org. Always love hearing your questions and your feedback. I hope your spring break is going amazingly, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday night. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.